Hey guys, it's Jampros and I'm back with another video as part of my Phase 3 and Phase 4 loot guides for physical DPS. This time we'll be doing feral DPS, even though nobody really plays it. Just kidding. Well, hopefully you'll get a good idea of which of the new items in these phases you'll want to be aiming for and help keep yourself or any loot councils doing some research well informed. Getting into the different sims, parameters, and general methodology, I only really had one option here, and it was the TBC cat sim. To be completely honest, I had a pretty hard time with this sim. Not only do you have to download something that looks like virus.exe, but you have to manually enter every stat in sim that takes forever to run. While using this, I definitely had some questions about the value of hit, expertise, and armor pen for cat DPS. Plus, the feral DPS community has a bit of a reputation for getting things wrong. To their credit, I suppose they correct themselves when they realize they are wrong eventually. Either way, this is the only tool we have available, so all simulations will run according to the current theory crafting consensus. All the sims were done as a Night Elf Druid with a 180-second fight duration, just like I've used for all the other class loot guides to keep an accurate comparison. It's all purely single target, and all the sims are 7700 armor, humanoid with all appropriate cooldowns, raid buffs, party buffs, and debuffs. Battle chickens are not used in the case of these sims, especially since Warcraft logs recently banned their usage. The top 3 items of the tier will be simmed for comparison, some exceptions for rings and trinket combinations. Sims will use complete gear sets, they don't just sim individual items. For example, when swapping pieces for testing, other item slots may be changed to keep a maximum DPS output. For example, switching one item out that's not being compared to keep a 2-piece or 4-piece bonus, or changing gems around to optimize hit rating. The Tier 5 BIS will be used to simulate the opening of Tier 6, the Mount Hyjal and Black Temple. They will use rare gems in all slots except for the items that are being replaced, which will use epic gems. In a full Tier 6 BIS comparison, that simulates the end of the tier and full BIS, and how much of an upgrade or downgrade certain items will be in a final gear set, and they will use epic gems in all slots without exception. This is the talent tree. I'm probably going to get a few people disagree with this because it was made with maximum DPS potential kept in mind. This is a Monocat build and not used for any bear tanking versatility, as evidenced by not filling out Feral Instinct or Thick Hide and instead putting the points into Feral Aggression. This is the Tier 5 BIS set. Note that this doesn't use Tier 5 set pieces at all, but does include the Tier 4 2-piece. And this would be the presumed Tier 6 total BIS, which does include the 4-piece bonus. There will be some suggested adjustments based on my sims for a few slots. You'll need to substitute some gear in and out while navigating your total hit rating, which should be around 6%. If you need to add hit, these are the best pieces and slots to do it with. The Choker is notable as being by far the best. Ranger General is good, and Dark Reaver Cloak is sort of a last resort. More commonly, you'll be looking to drop hit and substituting a hit ring for the Band of the Eternal Champion. The Hyjal Rep Ring is a really excellent option. If your set already contains the ring, Leggings of Murderous Intent is a great option to use while you're gearing up. So I guess we can start out with the easiest slot, Helm. Wolfset Helm. That's it. Sure, it's a level 40 item, but it enables power shifting and shouldn't be replaced through phases 3 and 4. It is finally technically viable to replace it, but you really shouldn't, as it's still a DPS loss. At least you don't have to fight over Cursed Vision like all of the other physical DPS. The next slot is full of really great options. Hopefully you're able to pick up the Verdant Sphere in Phase 2 for the Bisneck, and it is still very good. Endless Nightmares comes out as the biggest immediate upgrade, and is a great piece to have to be able to swap out hit rating elsewhere. Braided Eternium Chain comes in as only a 8.6 DPS loss, which is by far the least of the other physical DPS classes. That means a Feral Druid should definitely be in rotation for the crit buff it provides to the melee group. Choker Serrated Blade comes in a lot closer in a full Tier 6 setup. Endless Nightmare still sims ahead here, but keep in mind these sims are run against a 7700 armor target, which is a high armor boss. Against a low armor boss, the armor pen from Serrated Blade really starts to shine. I'd really recommend picking up both if at all possible. The next slot will probably be your most replaced item slot, depending on which encounter you're doing and if Eternium Chain is on cooldown or not. You'll finally be able to replace your Tier 4 pieces in Phase 3. Judging by these sim numbers though, you can't really break this bonus early. It's almost a 70 DPS loss doing so. The right time to break the tier 4 2-piece is when you can replace both pieces and get your 4-piece bonus from your tier 6 items. The Thunderheart Pauldrons are definitely your final bits here. Shoulder Pads of the Stranger is a great piece, but it's simmed here breaking the 4-piece bonus. Do note that having the tier 6 4-piece is only a 7.4 DPS increase from the tier 4 2-piece, so it's actually pretty close. If you've had any luck with the Agicloaks from Kael'thas in Phase 2, it should remain your final bis in Phases 3 and 4, but not by much. And technically the Shadow Moon Destroyer's Drape is a decent upgrade right off the bat. It does get closer though, and the only reason I didn't favor it quite as much is because it has hit, and that's usually a stat you're looking to drop. Adding hit is usually better off done in the next slot. The chest slot is the other tier 4 piece you'd be replacing along with the shoulders. Note again that these numbers are simmed with breaking the tier 4 2-piece in favor of just one item, and is definitely not worth it. But the Thunderheart chest guard is definitely your best here because of the 4-piece. Like I said earlier, it's only a 7.4 DPS increase over the tier 4 2-piece though, so even though these sims don't show it, I'd like to give an honorable mention to the Nether Shadow Tunic. It's actually technically the best individual item for the chest slot, but you really can't justify taking it unless you're looking to try like a full off-piece build or something. You'd break either your tier 4 2-piece or tier 6 4-piece doing so. Kind of unfortunate. The bracers feature a couple upgrades in Phase 3, one being a contested item in the Insidious bands from Terran Gorefiend, and the other is the Vindicator's Dragonhide bracers, which is actually just bought with Honor. This is a really, really easy 14 DPS upgrade for very little effort. In a full bis set, the Insidious bands actually come out ahead, but like I suggested earlier, I still think the next slot is the better way to go if you're looking to sub in a hit piece. Deadly Cuffs don't really come into play at any point, and those Honor bracers are just really so easy to get. For the gloves, the tier 6 Thunderheart gauntlets come out ahead of your Phase 2 gloves this year in grip by about 10 DPS, even without including the tier 6 set bonuses, making this probably one of your first replaced items. Grips and Damnation are just terrible. Haste is really just a poor stat for Feral Druids, and it's better to have other classes take that item. The gauntlets were already ahead in a full tier 6. These sims essentially just show how much of a DPS loss it would be replacing your 4-piece bonus for either of these items. The belt slot really just shows you how strong 100 Deaths really is. Practically no melee replaced this, and I really hope you have the chance to pick this item up in Phase 2. If not, it's still worth killing Vash for. The money belt from Anetheron is probably your next best option if you're not able to obtain it. Waistguard of the Great Beast is a Phase 4 badge item, and while not bad, I hope you'd be able to obtain one of the 2 better items by the time Zul'Aman releases. Skulker's Greaves from Karazhan is finally on the outs with a few good options to replace them with. You'll eventually want to replace them with tier 6 for the set bonus, but even by themselves they offer a 15.8 DPS increase. Shady Dealer's Pantaloons are also a great option if you can afford the hit rating and just haven't gotten fortunate enough with the tier 6 token. It's actually an individually better item than the Thunderheart leggings. And again, this really just shows your DPS loss from breaking the 4-piece bonus. Note how much closer using Shady Dealers is compared to the other off-pieces and breaking the 4-piece bonus. Against low armor bosses and using more armor pen gear, this gap could close pretty quick and would definitely be worth looking into in future phases if the Sims calculations are correct. Feral Druids really did use entirely too much Karazhan gear in Phase 2. If you're lucky enough, you'll be able to replace it all pretty quickly, including these Edgewalker long boots. Shadowmaster's boots from other Shiraz are a massive upgrade at more than 20 DPS. However, these are a pretty hotly contested item, and the Ninja's Tabi boots are purchasable with badges in Phase 4 for a modest upgrade. In a full tier 6 bis, the gap between the Tabi boots and the Shadowmaster's boots actually closes by a decent amount. Shadowmaster still comes out ahead, but the other boots are a pretty viable alternative, and they're easy to obtain with badges. Previously, we'd be using Shapeshifters and the Ring of Lethality, but there's a lot of really good upgrade paths here for rings. A lot of these are large upgrades, except for Unstoppable Aggressors, which is very minor. The expertise from shapeshifters is just still a very, very solid stat. Replacing lethality, however, unstoppable aggressors is a bigger upgrade. In fact, all the other rings are as well. This one is the weaker of the two phase 2 rings and should be the first one to be replaced if you can shift around enough hit rating to make up for it. In full tier 6 BIS, these combinations of rings actually get a lot more interesting. It's kind of all over the place. Storm Rage Signet Ring and Signet of Primal Wrath were the presumed BIS and are still very strong, but dropping the hit from Storm Rage and replacing with another item, for example the Endless Nightmares neck, actually simmed out exactly even with Primal Wrath and Unstoppable Aggressors. Coming out even more ahead was the Hydral Rep Ring, Band of the Eternal Champion. Signet of Primal Wrath in Phase 4 sims really well throughout all the combinations and should be considered your ultimate BIS ring. Not competing against everybody else who wants Storm Rage Signet Ring, instead using additional hit piece and the Band of the Eternal Champion is a really viable alternative. The different trinket combinations are also pretty interesting, but don't really have a lot of those huge gaps like the rings do. A lot of these are really close. Madness does well even against high armor bosses, and would presumably be even stronger against low armor bosses because of that armor pen proc. Tsunami Talisman still remains BIS until Phase 4, at which point you could trade out Trinkets with Berserker's Call and Madness of the Betrayer, depending on the encounter. Bloodlust Brooch is just a weaker version of Berserker's Call, and DST is a fantastic trinket, but Haste is really just a poor stat for ferals. Still, it's not that far behind, and really shows you just how overpowered it is for most classes. Feral weapons are tough. PvP is really important for these. Fortunately, the Season 2 weapon, which was Phase 2 BIS, can now be bought for simple arena points with no rating requirement. Unfortunately, the only Phase 3 upgrade is another PvP staff, and that does require rating. If you can reach the rating, it's a pretty sizable upgrade at 32.5 DPS. In Phase 4, a PvE Feral staff finally makes an appearance. The Staff of Primal Fury is very good against even high armor bosses, and is a key item for future armor pen builds. As you can see, Primal Fury and the Vengeful Staff sim out practically even. If you can acquire both, you could swap them to adjust hit rating and for more armor pen on low armor bosses. Highly recommended. There are only two options for idols, Everbloom and Raven Goddess. Raven Goddess is a big personal DPS loss of like 50 to 60 DPS, but does add 20 crit to leader of the pack. Your melee group would love you for it, but overall, in a maximum DPS build, Everbloom is the way to go. Little summary of all the items we went over here. These are your mostly useless items. The Nether Shadow Tunic, unfortunately, even though it's actually individually very good, doesn't really find a place in any sort of gear set. Deadly Cuffs never really comes into play. Damnation uses haste. The Money Belt, which is actually your second BIS, but is pretty useless if you're able to require the Vash Belt at any point. These are great upgrades if your BIS is not available. The Choke of Endless Nightmares, Shadow Moon Destroyer's Drape, especially for changing around hit rating. Shady Dealers, if you are able to go low armor bosses for an armor pen piece. Band of the Eternal Champion may actually end up being in your final BIS ring setup. And these are your highest priority items. The PvP Honor Bracers should probably be the first item you upgrade. The Gauntlets and Leggings are easily replaceable. Once ZA comes out, the Signet of Primal Wrath and the Staff of Primal Fury are right up there. And that's it. Thanks for watching. I probably put more time into this video than all the others so far. Next up, I'll be doing Arms Warrior. Please subscribe, follow me on Twitch, come hang out, chat with me. Pray I actually get a Warglaive to drop. Thanks, guys.